All right, time to get back to it. So in the previous video, we built a stack. That was basically a stack of boxes. So we still have our box. I'm still using the same file. I've got my queue. And of course you could make another project. Make sure you copy things from the previous thing over. But this is the box we're going to be using. And you can just make a new Java class, name it box, and fill it out with what you see here if you're making a new project. We have our old school queue here. Now, the old queue worked with numbers, integers to be exact. But again, just like with the stack, having a queue of numbers isn't that useful. I guess if you were making maybe a queue of ID numbers of players who were, queuing up to play a game or something, then, that might work. But let's go ahead and use our box. We can think of this as, maybe an Amazon line or something, or some post office service where all the boxes are lined up and going out the door or something. So, first and foremost, let's take a look at what we got to change. So, much like the stack, we don't have an integer array this time. We have a box array. So I'm going to change that. And of course, the first thing it's going to do is break everything. Well, most things. So let's see. The max is how big my queue is. The front is basically the first location that my queue is going to be at. The size is the current size, not to be confused with the max size. And we actually don't technically need the max size. We could actually get the max size just by checking the size of the array. And of course the back is the back of the line. Now these are all integer locations pointing in the array where that location is. So these don't have to be boxes. So we come down, and similar issue here to the stack. We do need to know how big it's going to be, so that's still going to stay an int. But we're not making an integer array, we're making a box array. So we make that adjustment. And if it was another object, a chicken, it would be a chicken array. That's how we would swap that out. Now in queue, I made it a Boolean that returned true and false, if it worked or didn't. We're not giving them an integer, but a box. Now, here's one issue here. A box is an object. And I do have a display contents thing here for the box, right? But there's an issue here. N is just going to give me that same old weird pointer value. So I either need to give my box an ID number or something, or I can display the contents. There's probably 3 or 4 ways to approach this. I could just, not display anything particular about it and just say a box, try to get in line. That's what I'm going to go with, because the alternative is to write a bit more code that I don't really need. But if you wanted this to be more specific, you probably have to go to the box and give it some more data, an ID or box number, something along the lines of that. So let's take a look. If the line is full, size equals max, nothing to change there. They can't enter the line because it's full, that's fine. If size is 0, that means everything is empty. And I put the box in its current location. And instead of that, I'll just write, box. I'll just erase the quotes, gets in line. Else, well, there's something in the queue already, but it's not full, so we go ahead and we add this. So again, I'm going to just erase that little part there and just name it box. All the numbers and everything here pretty much can stay the same. I don't have to change anything. Whether it's an integer or an object, the code here is pretty much the same. So that is in queue. We scroll on down to dequeue. And instead of an integer, I will be dequeuing a box. And just like with stack, instead of, returning -1, I'll say return null. Instead of int in, it's going to be a box in, because it's a box that I'm taking this thing out of the queue, putting it into a temporary location, and returning it later. Now instead of 0, it's going to be null, since this object, an empty object, is null. But again, it's not that necessary. We could just leave a copy there, but that seems like poor planning in case some other coding goes wrong. At least, with this, we know we've taken it out, and there's not going to be any confusion about that. That's why I tend to prefer to do this. So with this, our public box dequeue should work. Now, we scroll on down, and we made this fancy little display here. Now, the big deal with this is the way the queue displays is a little different than how the stack displays. So it's going to be a lot harder to kind of display it in this little line item like we did before. So we're going to have to make some slight alternatives here, because I can't just display it like I did before. Now I do have a display contents for the box, so that's perfectly valid. So probably the easiest way is just to display it just like we did with the stack. I just say, in fact, I can just basically use the exact same thing. But so let's take a look. I'm printing QF. So instead of QF, I'm just going to say, let's back that up a little bit. Back that up. Okay. We have our box array called Q, right? We look at the very top. So it's going to be Q, and I have to know the array number. So I Q, let's see here, I gotta make sure we're doing this proper, like Q dot display contents. Let's go with that for right now just to see if it works. So I am printing the things, just contents basically, but it should be displayed pretty much just like the stack and queue was. Now I probably want to say, let's say at the very top, front. Then once this whole thing prints, the end of this, I'll just say end or back. So I'll add a little descriptor in the front and back. I won't necessarily be able to print it, like I said, in a straight line like I did before, but I should still get enough description to know if it's working or not. All right, so hopefully that takes care of all the red, and it looks like it does. So we'll make a quick queue. Q1 equals new queue, and let's make it, doesn't really matter, 5, like that, should be okay. I have some boxes already, so we'll just use those boxes. That way I don't have to redo anything. So I'm going to say q1.inQ, and we'll just go ahead and inQ box B1. And then, q1.inQ box B2. And then we'll just check it out. Dot display. And hopefully, the end of this thing, there's the front. The first thing to get in was the chicken and pickles. The next thing was the pizza. So if I were to dequeue something, q1.dequeue, it should only leave the pizza. If I do this right, and lo and behold, I did. That's the front, that's the back. So we got a good approximation here. Oh, looks like I left a little weird box descriptor here. my queue somewhere. Let's see, where did I do that? Oh, there it is. Right there. So it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to make it do that so it looks better. Box is leaving the line. There we go. Could say box of pizza, or be a little more descriptive if I wanted to, but not necessary for this little exercise. So there we go. That is how we adjust a stack and a queue. So now my queue officially works with the box. And it would be the same with any object. If I wanted to make, like I said before, chicken sandwiches. Or if I wanted to make zombies, games, players, whatever, I would just make the adjustments, just the exact same way I did this. The display would probably be a little different depending on what type of attributes the thing has. If I had players and I wanted to see player stats and on this, then maybe I would display it a little differently than this. It would just depends. Maybe it would just be player names down the list. Or with that one, I probably could do it in a nice little line. It would be a little more difficult to do this in that line though. Alright, well that is stacks and queues now officially finished. If you have any problems or questions, feel free to let me know.